أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It's good to come after Imam Ali Lillah when he was able during his talk to come to some of the points that are critical when it comes to understanding of Shura and democracy, and mainly starting as he did with defining the concepts that we are using. And I will rely on that in my talk and come to some critical questions that we have to ask, and especially for us living in the West within democratic systems, and where we can get also a better understanding of the assets and the liabilities within the system, because as he said, and I think it's important, our take on the discussion is not just to show how much we can be democratic when we are Muslims, but in which way our understanding of our principles are going to contribute to the current discussions. And I have been working on this for the last, in fact, 30 years. The first time I wrote about Shura and democracy and this discussion was a long time ago, and books have been written about that. And for the people, once again, I'm always referring to this because the problem that I have with conventions is that you listen and sometimes you don't read enough. And for this, you have to be committed to reading, to try to understand. So books are there. There is one book that I wrote, I think, at the beginning of the 90s called Islam, the West, and the Challenges of the Modernity, where I'm tackling this very issue, democracy and Shura. And on my website, you can go there, you will find articles where I'm tackling this, now in the 3 languages, in English, in Arabic, and in French. And we have been working in the Center for Islamic Legislations and Ethics on 11 fields. One of them is about politics. And we have been working with scholars, ulama, shuyukh, and people who are involved in political sciences and trying to deal with this very question about the political system from an Islamic viewpoint in practical terms. And we had a seminar, this was a few months ago, with scholars working, and people have been writing about this for the last 50 years. Sheikh al-Qardawi was there, even Hassan al-Turabi, but we had also Kamali who was with us, and other people in practice, John Esposito, who have been writing about this for the last decades, and trying to get to our understanding of what is our vision in the political system. And I can tell you something that I was myself very, very worried after the session, after the seminar, as I have been over the last few years, as to our political thought and the way we look at the issue. And if you read the Arab Awakening, when I'm trying to say something about what could be the future in Muslim majority countries after what we are talking about, I never bought this idea that we were dealing with a spring. I never thought that we were dealing with revolutions. And now I think that we are facing critical challenges for the future in Muslim majority countries. And we have to come to a critical discussion here. So I think that this is the picture, and I want to come from the theoretical framework to something which is also practical. But let me say something very quickly as the prerequisites. As it was said, and I think we have to start with this, when it comes to this, is to have a clear understanding of the concepts that we are using. And you know that it's only 20 to 30 years ago that some ulama started to use the concept of democracy. Before that, we're even talking about Shura, and you had some leaders saying democracy is not in the Quran, but the way it was integrated in our terminology as Muslims is also something which is important, is why before we were saying, no, it's not our system, and why now we are acknowledging that there are things that are important in our understanding democracy. It's not only because it's political, it's because also we are experiencing something with our presence in the West, our understanding of what are the principles of democracy. So there is an understanding which is deeper, not only about the political system, but also about even, for example, what secularism is. Secularity is not what some were perceiving in Muslim majority countries, it's something else. And from within, we need to get with a better understanding of what we are talking about, not a superficial understanding. So the first step is the terminology. I'm not going to repeat what Imam Ali Lela said. The second is, we have to be very cautious with terminology and then with the principles behind the terminology. العبرة بالمسميات لا بالأسماء. And this is something which is important. Our discussion is about what do you mean with this concept and not the concept itself. I'm not going to say, oh no, democracy is not Shura because Shura is the Arabic word. We need to come say, okay, tell me what are the principles of Shura and tell me what are the principles of democracy. And we have to understand that the principles are immutable, they can go beyond history, while the models are historical. For example, if you live in the United States of America, or in Canada, or in Britain, or in Switzerland, or in France, or in Germany, you will see many models, many different democratic models. The models are based on a specific history, collective psychology, different understanding, different culture. So the models are historical. The principles are trans-historical. So you have the same principles and different models. And it's very important. It's very important. Why? Because even in Muslim majority countries, we are not going to have one political model. We'll have the same principles and different models depending on the people. Why? Because the Arabs don't think and don't live and don't have the same culture as Africans, for example, or West Africans. And Turkish people don't have the same vision, the same understanding than other Asian people. So we are going to have different Islamic models, or principles being the same and models being different. This is something also that we have to get. Why? Because the political structure is not aqidah. Al-aqidah is the same. The way it's going to be translated into structures, into dynamics, into articulating some principles with the current culture or the surrounding culture is something that has to do with the people. And we need to get this. We can't just come say, tell me what is Islamic. I want an Islamic model. I'm sorry. There is a set of Islamic principles, but we have many models. And this is why, even in politics, we should be creative. We should know about the culture. We should know about the psychology. We should know with whom we are dealing, our society, qawmi. And even this was so important to the prophets. All the messengers, when they were talking to the people, even if they were rejected by the people, they still repeated, Ya qawmi. And you, in the United States of America, you should get it right. You should be able not only to say it with your mouth, but you feel it with your heart and to get it in your body. It's a feeling, Ya qawmi, this is my society, this is where I live, and this is where I have to contribute. Now, we also have to go from theory to practical concerns that I will just raise as a second part of my talk. Having said that now, let me say something which very quickly, and I'm going to challenge you on that. Very often as Muslims, we say, you know what, as Muslims, there is no difference for us between religion and politics. And I'm challenging you because I say that's wrong. There is a difference in Islam between state and religion. In fact, in the modern and contemporary Western tradition, when we say there is a difference between state and religion, in fact, what we mean is there is a difference between the two authorities. One authority is a top-down. It's coming from Allah, sami'na wa ata'na. We get it because this is coming from Allah. The other authority is a bottom-up. It means it's negotiated by the people to get a political decision. And so this is why we are making a difference between the two authorities. Is this alien to Islam? It's not alien to Islam. And some philosophers, even in the West, are saying and said in fact, this distinction between two authorities came to the West through the Muslims and not the other way around. Now we have people coming to us say, we need to teach you this. And we are doubly alienated because it's in our tradition and we talk to the people as if it was coming from them because we don't know our tradition. And the first story came with Ghazwat Badr, when the companion of the Prophet ﷺ went to the Prophet and told him, where we are here, is this coming from you or is it a revelation or coming from you? He said, it's coming from me. And he answered, so it's wrong. Meaning, if it's a top down coming from Allah, sami'na wa ata'na. But if it's your opinion and it has to do with war and strategy, I'm challenging your opinion. Meaning, he differentiated between the authority of Allah, not disputed, and the authority of the leader to be disputed, because this is where we are involved in a discussion. On one side, this is the Shura that is going to be organizing these opinions. On the other side is the way you deal with al-aqidah, you deal with al-ibadah, you don't discuss this. We in Islam have something which is important here. So we distinguish the authorities, but with one condition. As much as we rely on what is coming in the revelation when it comes to al-aqidah, wal-ibadat, and the obligations and the prohibition, when it comes to our social affairs, masalih al-nas, the public interest, al-ma'ruf, al-halal, wal-haram, we always connect the two authorities with ethics, with morality. We always want to have ethics in politics. And if there is a lack of ethics and politics, there is something wrong in the business. So we are not confusing the two authorities, but we have a comprehensive way to deal with ethical concern when it comes to politics. Why? Any power should be subjected to an ethical framework, meaning principles, transparency, honesty, integrity, serving the people, a mandate. And you have to understand that there are rules. الْمُسْلِمُونَ عَنْدَ شُرُوطِهِمْ, that you have agreement, that you have to respect the agreement. This is all about ethics in politics. So all this business that we don't make a difference, we are repeating this, but we are not studying our tradition. And we have to come back to the deep Islamic tradition. Now, something which is said, I told you, don't be confused with the words and the concepts, come to the principles. From an Islamic perspective, if you read all the books that we have in the West about what is a democratic structure or a democratic political system, you will find very quickly, just to summarize this, 6 main principles. The first one, I am talking about principles here. I'm not talking about pleasing the West. I'm talking about the structure, the principles that are helping to translate this into structure. First, rule of law. Second, equal citizenship. Third, universal suffrage. Fourth, accountability. Fifth, separation of power. Sixth, separation of authority. Got that? This is the 6th principle. Come to Shura now. Rule of law, this is something which is essential in Islam. The first Islamic science has to do with the legal framework. Al-fiqh is based on how do we translate the norms into ahkam, and we get the ahkam from the scriptural sources, and we translate this in a collective dimension. Individual and collective. Rule of law. Universal suffrage, this is exactly what happened, and the concept of the liberation, what happened in Ghazwat, just before Ghazwat Uhud, is based on a majority system. We don't have a problem with this, that the universal suffrage is a majority process. Third dimension, equal citizenship. This is something which was so important in our understanding first of Al-Ummah, when the Prophet ﷺ talking about the Jews within Medina said, لَهُمْ مَلَنَا وَعَلَيْهِمْ مَعَلَيْنَا. They have the same rights and the same duties as us within the society. Equal citizenship is something which is not disputable between black and white, men and women, and Muslims and non-Muslims within the society. This is something that we can translate in contemporary terms. Accountability is exactly what Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu was saying, if I am right, support me. If I am wrong, direct me, help me. So we are accountable. You cannot just go and do whatever you want. There is a revelation, and they are the people who have to check. You are accountable. Separation of power is something that we have from the very beginning. There is a difference between the one who is the executive power, the judiciary power, and anything which has to do with the legal framework. And once again, all our scholars were not, the great scholars that we had, were not supporting the leaders. They were a counterpower, and they were talking from a legal perspective and saying and challenging the authority when this authority was an excessive authority. And the last one is the one that I just said, separating authority. We don't have a problem with this. Look at the principles, and you can understand that we are not pleasing the West, but in our understanding of the principles, there is something that is in principles having the same prerequisite and conditions, even, and this is where our contribution is critical, but all these principles with an ethical concern. So anything which is going to pervert power from outside or from within, we should be there to challenge it in ethical terms. So it's not enough, for example, to speak about citizenship as a Muslim. A Muslim citizen always speak about ethics of citizenship. It's not even enough to speak about politics. We speak about ethics in politics. Always. Always. Our contribution is the ethical value, added ethical value that we are bringing to the discussion. And I will come to that right now. So, and then coming to our principle, we have the revelation. And the revelation is telling us about some principles that are immutable and disputable. For example, some of the principles that we have is something which is essential. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Human dignity is a principle. Any human being, and if in one society it is possible to make you think that a black man, that someone in Africa has less value than you, even in a democratic society, this is against the principle of Islam, because وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ means we all have the same dignity. No discussion. And you have to be the added value in the United States. Why? When, for example, one soldier is killed in Iraq, and it's a big issue in the States, while thousands of Iraqis are killed and no one talks about this, it means there is something wrong in the ethical framework. They have the same value. The blood of the Arabs or the Palestinians have the same value as the blood of the Americans. No, you don't clap, you just think. Okay, so the point is here that this is our responsibility to come with this, the principles. Human dignity, for example. The second principle that we have, among many others, is equality. Equality means that we are all equal before God. And I mean that. For some of our brothers and sisters, when we say men and women are equal before God, we mean this. It means that the dignity of our sisters and brothers in a society should be protected as a principle, not disputable. And this is also an added things that we have in the whole understanding. Having said that now, we also have rules. It's how we are going to translate this into rules. And for us as Muslims, the rules are coming from the obligations and the prohibitions that we can, al-halal wal-haram. These are things that we want to see translated into a legal framework, but not everything is going to be translated, because there are norms that are dealing with ethical behavior and norms that are saying these are things that are haram. So the translation into the legal system, it's also important based on the revelation, and this was also mentioned by Imam Ali. The last thing which is also important in our reference to Islam are the objectives, al-maqasid. What we are trying to achieve, and here there is something which is essential. Inna Allah ya'mulu bil-'adl, meaning justice is an objective. Freedom, it's an objective. To let the people being free and to be able to deal with their life. But there are also other objectives that we are not talking about enough. And there is one objective, like for example, well-being. And well-being in a democracy is very important. Well-being in a Muslim society is very important, to feel good where you are. Meaning, a sense of belonging. I belong to this society. And you know what it means? It's not enough to come and say, you know what? When sometimes we are at the desk at the airport and you just show your passport, I'm Swiss. Okay, the Swiss passport or the American passport is just showing that you belong to the country and the structure. It doesn't mean that you belong, the feeling that you are part of the society. The sense of belonging is deeper than that and has to do with well-being, that I feel at home. And this is part of the objectives, that you are able to have something which is patriotism. In this way it's important. Nationalism is the narrow meaning, it's not what we want. But to feel at home, to love your country. I heard Fazaga yesterday, our brothers saying, there was something which was very special with Mandela. And it's true. Mandela was dealing with a society where the white people were saying, you black people, you don't deserve to have the same rights. And he ended up, after 27 years in jail, showing that he loves his country more than the white people who were persecuting him. So, ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى, meaning with your heart, with your taqwa, go beyond your emotions and educate yourself to feel that you are at home here. And this is min al-adl. This is min al-taqwa. This is beyond. And this is the way you structure this sense of belonging. All these, from an Islamic perspective, principles, rules, and objectives are there in the light of the 6 principles that I mentioned, knowing that principles are universal and models are historical. Now, to end this discussion for me, and I'm sorry, 30 minutes to... Am I still in my time? I have 5 minutes? MashaAllah, that's good. For the first time in 3 days, I'm almost within my time. The second part is, that's all fine. And you can sit here and celebrate the fact that we as Muslims, we don't have a problem with the democratic principles and we are connecting this with the ethical framework, but that's not enough. We have challenges and we need now to come with critical thinkings. And you, American Muslims, that now your job, you live in a democratic society and you should not fool yourself and you should not just come with a theoretical framework which has no connection with the realities. They are challenges, weaknesses, failures in our democratic systems now in the West that we as citizens, in the name of the common good, we have to challenge. Not to Islamize, but to ask ethical questions about what is happening in our societies. The first thing that we have to do in Muslim majority countries, for example, is to question, you know, for years we heard, we want an Islamic state. You heard what happened after the Arab awakening, that Islamic State disappeared. Why? Because people were saying you have 2 choices. On the one side, you go to Iran, so this is the Islamic State, or you follow in the footsteps of Turkey. And this is a modern Islamic State. So it was, and many leaders were saying, no, we have nothing to do with Iran. We are following the footsteps of Turkey. And some were saying, neither, no, we have our own project. And they came with something which was the civic state. The civil state, الدولة المدنية ذات مرجعية إسلامية, with an Islamic frame of reference. That's all fine, but I'm sorry to tell you, when you sit with the people and say, can you tell me what it means exactly? You might be surprised. Because these are good words to be accepted, the substance is missing as to the vision. What do you want to do? We ended up in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, in many of these countries, the great majority, into something which was a polarization between secularists versus Islamists, avoiding the deep question of our time: how do we set a non-corrupt, transparent state in these countries? That's just impossible. You are not going to solve the problem if you are obsessed with power and not think about the whole vision. And I said it in the book, I was criticized by both. In the West, what are you talking about? In Muslim majority countries, you don't trust the Arabs. As if I don't trust the Arabs. Subhanak. No, I don't trust some Arabs. I don't trust the people who love power and are obsessed with power and not coming with the real, deep, critical questions. Because that's true. This obsession of power, even if you come with an ethical background, sometimes corrupts your mind. That you are so obsessed with, we can get there. I said it from the beginning. You can read this on the website, read it on the book. I said it to all the people. Don't go for the first election. This is a trap. It's a trap. No. They are not here to defend themselves. Unfortunately, the people who are running now these countries, and for example in Egypt, once again, whatever is your take on the Muslim Brotherhood, whatever is your take on political Islam, anyone who is not now clear about the fact that if you are Democrats, you cannot support a coup d'etat coming from the military is not serious about his or her principles. We have to be clear on that. And I was critical with the power before, but I cannot accept this kind of, be cautious and in order to please your Western, even state or even government, you keep quiet on people who have been killed when they were demonstrating without weapons, and some of them are in jail and tortured, and they were elected by the people, and they were asking to respect the rule of law, which is, in fact, the starting principle of anything which has to do with democracy. Now, very quickly, the critical thinking. The first, this is one that we have to come to it from within. But something which is very important and which is missing in our societies. You speak about democracy in the United States of America. There will be no democracy if there is no civic education. Civic education means know how it works within the society, know the law, know the system. The great majority of the Americans, the great majority of the Westerners in their society are not dealing with civic education. So they are asked to vote not knowing how it works. And if we are not equipped with an adapted education within the system, it's a joke. How am I going to vote? How am I going to know how it works at the local level? Citizenship is not about only voting for the president. It's to be involved at the local level. It's to be involved at the regional level. It's to be involved at the international level. This means that we need to get a civic education. Where is this civic education? It's not enough. In many countries now, the civic education disappeared from the curriculum. And we can't. To be a Democrat means that you are knowledgeable. This is why there was something very important in the whole understanding of Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd was people who are informed. Because you need to take decisions. You need to be informed. You need to be equipped intellectually. If there is no education about anything, you don't know how the laws work, you don't know who is going to be elected, and people are telling you, you end up saying, you know what? The great majority of the women in the United States of America voted for Bill Clinton. You know why? Because he's good looking. Oh, great. Nice democratic process. And exactly the same with Obama. Many people are saying he's an African American and good looking. I don't care. That's not the point. Tell me what he thinks. Tell me his program. Tell me if what he said before is what he has done while he was there. And if it's not the case, that's not the good president. That's the point. The point is to check and to be informed. So this is democracy. This is something which is missing. And we as Americans, you as American citizens, you should be involved in the system. And the added value is education, instruction about how it works to be equipped, to be free citizen. This is one. Very quickly, the third thing which is important is what we say, the separation between state and religion. That's fine. We don't have a problem with this. I said it. Now I have a problem. I don't want this separation between state and religion to be a separation between state and ethics. I want more transparency and less corruption. I want to know more about this transparency. All the European and the American and the Western and even Asian democracy have a lack of transparency, not enough ethics in politics. We are all facing this. So we, as citizens, we should come with this added value. We want more transparency, less corruption. And not only in the Muslim majority countries, but here. And the point is that, yes, you are telling us that we need to remove the religion from the picture. But we, as citizens, we want to be clear on that we want the autonomy of the state to be protected also from economic powers. Transnational corporations now have a take on the state decision that we don't decide for. And these transnational corporations are not democratic, but they have the power to change the policy of the state. This is why Bill Clinton, when he was the president of this society, was saying, the people who are running this country are 1% of the people. Guess who? The people who have money. Transnational corporation. So you don't want religion to decide for the state. We don't want economic transnational corporations to decide for us. And when in Europe we have this big economic crisis, who came and took over? Technocrats. We didn't even vote for them, but they took over. And they decide how the countries should be run for the sake of money. And if we don't get this, that democracy is nothing if there is no economic stability, we don't understand what is happening in the Middle East now. We are obsessed with political discussions where political power, just read, please read, go on the website and read the article that I posted coming from WikiLeaks, how much Goldman Sachs was involved in training the people who were on the cyber dissidents to push the people in the streets. Why Goldman Sachs? Money. Economy, finance. So you tell us the autonomy of the street and you come with economic power. We don't want this economic power to decide for us. This is not democracy. This is alienation. This is politics without ethics. And if you have the president, the French president saying, you know what? We need to moralize capitalism. I say, thank you. Can you moralize capitalism? We can't. We need to come with something which is an ethical framework, and this is a question. My last point, yes, I know it's over, and it's good that he's talking there, giving me some more time. The last two things that I wanted to say is about media. Because we are talking about fourth power, but you know now how powerful is media, the alternative communication. Now, with the media, you can be so powerful that you can change the opinion of the people. If the people are not educated and they are facing with this powerful media, what are the principles? How are we going to protect the principles of democracy if it's all coming from the media who have so much power on our minds? And this is why we are facing populism everywhere, very powerful propaganda. Look at what is happening now in Egypt. All the media supporting the military in a way where you have not access to anything else. But what is happening there, in one way, it's always happening here. We are talking about Fox News, but it's not only this. The way the media are working are shaping sensitivities, shaping opinions. And if you are not equipped to deal with media, you are going to be lost. You are going to be lost, so we have to deal with this. No real democratic process without education, facing the power of the media. And the problem of the media are not only the way it's written, but who are the people who are owning the media, paying for the media. So this is something which is corrupting the democratic process from within. So you feel that you are free, but everything which is coming to you is bombarding you with the way you are going to think. And if you are not equipped, you are not going to do what you have to do as citizens. So these are things that we need to bring in a constructive way. It doesn't mean that we say nothing in good. I'm sorry to tell you that in the United States of America, many of the principles that you are dreaming of as Muslims are more here than there. Many of the principles are protected more here than there. But as citizens, you should contribute with a critical approach and critical thinking, which is so important, and protecting this. Last point. Anything which has to do with democracy is based on a culture of critical thinking. And we, as Muslims in our community, we need to be quite clear that if we want to be contributing to the future of our societies in the West, we have to integrate in our institutions, organizations, mosques, a culture of critical thinking. That's a very important point. Critical thinking means you can express your opinion, you listen to others, you exchange thoughts, and this is the way you can be a democrat. This is the way you understand the meaning of Shura. How am I going to give you an opinion if you don't give me a space? Well, Surah Al-Hujurat is saying that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq wa Umar radiallahu anhuma, they were disputing on issues in front of the Prophet ﷺ. That as you come in the mosque, escort, shut up. This is a place where you listen to. How are you going to build a culture of critical thinking if we are not welcoming critical thinking and thoughts? How are you going to contribute? This is the way we have to change our mind and to come to something which is essential here. So a clear intellectual challenge here with our terminology and our principles, a vision with priorities, and practical way to deal with critical thinkings are some of the challenges for us. Wallahu a'lam wa ala wa ahkam wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tariq Ramadan. This is an important subject. We are running out of time, so I will ask if we can allow one question to Imam Ali. We have talked about Shura and democracy and the definitions. Can we replace the word democracy in Arabic to Shura? Can we say that, for example, that we are in a democracy, that therefore it is Shura, and if it is Shura, is it democracy? Yes.
Well, I would answer this with what Professor Ramadan just said. The name does not make a big of a difference. Whether we call it democracy, we call it Shura, we need to look at the substance, we need to look at the principles. What do we mean by the terminology? As I said earlier, the word Shura is a Quranic term, and we should not be shy by mentioning the word Shura. And people ask us about what the word Eid mean, what Ramadan mean, what Shura mean. So that these terminologies should be brought up and explained to ourselves and to others. So the idea of changing the word democracy to Shura or Shura to democracy will not make a big of a difference. And as I said also, that we should not shy away from presenting these ideas to other people and explain what does Shura mean. And looking at our history, we will find that the Shura has been misused, as well as the democracy, as Professor Ramadan mentioned, has also been misused. So many horrible crimes have been conducted in the name of democracy, and also so many corruption has been done in the name of Shura. So again, that terminology does not, changing the terms does not make a big of a difference. The substance, the principles behind these terms, what makes the big difference. Wallahu alam.
Thank you. Jazakumullah khair. Please thank the speakers on this important topic. We thank Dr. Tariq Ramadan and Imam Ali. We thank you for coming this morning. And Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
For the past 20 years, it's been our honor to serve those in need around the world.